You can now get Ozempic on the NHS. Well, some people can. They say for about 2 years. But is it a good thing? Is it going to help people lose weight in the long term? Is it going to reverse diabetes in the long term? Is it something you should be taking? Hello and welcome to the Health Results Wellness channel, where today I'm taking a look at Ozempic. I'm going to react to a video I've just seen by Vox talking about Ozempic, and I want to give you my opinion of whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And if you like the video, please do like and subscribe, because if you do that, we can get the inspiring better health message out to more and more people. Right, let's get into this video.
This is Ozempic. It's a drug approved by the FDA to manage type 2 diabetes.
Let's start straight away. It's a drug. And in this case, we're using a drug to treat a lifestyle disease. Does that really make sense?
Maybe you've heard the jingle. Or maybe you've seen Ozempic in the news recently for another reason.
Weight loss.
Weight loss.
Easy weight loss.
Miracle diet drug.
Miracle weight loss drug.
And it's true.
Miracle weight loss drug. Yeah, Ozempic will help you lose weight. And if you call it a miracle that you're going to carry on eating loads of foods, especially the wrong foods, and take this drug to offset the damage of these dangerous foods, my God, it is a miracle.
Ozempic was designed to help people manage their blood sugar, but it's also proven to help people lose weight.
My doctor was like, this is mainly for blood sugar management, but as a side effect, like, you will lose weight. When I started to notice that, like, in the first month or so, I had dropped 10 pounds like nothing, I was like, there's something to this.
And once you learn why it works, you'll understand how this drug could completely change the way we approach weight loss.
It could change completely the way we approach weight loss, but it's not the answer. We need to change how we approach food.
According to the latest data from the National Institutes of Health, around 42% of adults in the US are currently categorized as obese. The CDC's list of health risks associated with obesity include heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes, diseases that rank.
Obesity does increase the risk of those three things. In fact, in my book, I have this tree. This is called the tree of insulin resistance, which is now being talked about by lots of life insurance companies, because obesity does not only touch those three things, it also can increase the risk of certain cancers, even erectile dysfunction, infertility, PCOS, even migraines, and much, much, much more. So yes, we have to get obesity down, but is Ozempic the answer?
Among the leading causes of premature death worldwide. Not everyone living with type 2 diabetes is considered obese, but the two are closely linked. In fact, one of the leading recommendations for managing type 2 diabetes is weight loss.
Even like a small amount of weight reduction for people with diabetes can help blood sugar management.
And there is the nail on the head. We have to manage blood sugar levels. There are several ways of doing that, and Ozempic is definitely one of them.
Clark, I'm 33 years old, and I have a type of diabetes called latent autoimmune diabetes in adults.
I reached out to Mila because she runs a YouTube channel, The Hangry Woman, where she makes videos about living a healthy life with diabetes.
The thing that I wish that people understood more is how difficult it is to live with both diabetes and obesity.
She's also documented her experience with Ozempic.
It has always been really hard for me to lose weight despite diet and exercise and paying attention to lifestyle habits.
Let's not mince words. Losing weight in a modern world where all the food is designed to make you eat more and more of it, therefore put on weight, is difficult. It is not a simple thing to do. And injecting yourself with Ozempic once a week or whatever your frequency could be part of the solution. But so could, too, getting your food right and swimming against the tide.
For a long time, doctors have had mixed views on how to make weight loss more accessible, to help people lower their risk for illnesses like type 2 diabetes. One option is weight loss medication. Historically, weight loss drugs have been associated with dangerous side effects and have been pulled from the market.
Pulled from the market, indeed. In fact, if you look through the history books and do your research, every single drug that over the last 50 years that has been released on the market, originally as safe as the miracle drug, every single one eventually has been pulled.
market. Metabolic bariatric surgery is extremely effective for weight loss, but it requires dramatic lifestyle changes that can be challenging to maintain. But with new diabetes drugs like Ozempic, scientists have a safe and effective tool for weight loss.
Okay, safe and effective. Well, I've interviewed a lot of doctors around the topic of Ozempic. In particular, a brilliant doctor, Dr. Ben Bickman, who's also a professor, who was involved at the very early days of what we call a GLP-1 drug, which is effectively what Ozempic is. Let's talk quickly about, is it safe? Well, regardless of what the literature says, there are lots of documented cases of people suffering depression. You see, one of the things that Ozempic does, it causes a numbness, a lack of enjoyment of food. And in life, when you have a lack of enjoyment, it can lead to depression, anxiety. There have been cases reported of people committing suicide simply because they're taking Ozempic. I've spoken to doctors that say it paralyzes the intestines. It paralyzes it. In fact, people now are calling it the Ozempic burp. It causes burping. You see, one of the things it does, it slows down gastric emptying, which means the food sits in the stomach for longer, making you less hungry, eating less. But then you get the Ozempic burp. It comes off the esophagus. It's really, really not a nice smell. A lot of people have nausea most of the time. To say that it has no side effects is an absolute nonsense. And back to the comment before, all drugs in this area eventually get pulled from the market. I think this one eventually will get pulled back from the market. You know, when it was first introduced, GLP-1s, and in fact the body produces GLP-1 as a hormone, the amount that was in those early administrations was a fraction of what it is today. And back then, you could almost argue that it was probably a safe drug to be taking. But in the dosages that we're having and we're seeing in Ozempic today, to claim that it doesn't have side effects is a complete nonsense.
And it's based on something that's inside our bodies already. Hormones. Hormones are the body's messengers, running from one place to another, prompting certain cells into action. When we eat, our bodies produce a bunch of hormones to aid in the process of digestion. One of them is GLP-1, the hormone that tells us when we're full. This is the sequence of amino acids that make it up. And this is semaglutide, the generic name for Ozempic. It's made to mimic GLP-1.
So on paper, you'd say, well, if it's just mimicking what the body's doing naturally, why don't we have more of it? Well, because of homeostasis. And also, if you take that to other hormones and say, and neurotransmitters like serotonin, like dopamine, why don't we just dial it up? Why don't we dial up leptin that tells the brain it's full? Because let's say we dial up leptin, you'd say that makes sense, tell the brain it's full. But no, then we get leptin resistance, we get insulin resistance. Our bodies are complicated and it releases a certain amount of certain hormones for a reason. It caps it for a certain reason.
When food enters your stomach and begins to work its way through the digestive system, your body releases GLP-1 in the intestine. There are receptors for GLP-1 in cells all throughout the body that serve different functions when triggered by the hormone. In the pancreas, GLP-1 receptors promote the production of insulin, the hormone that lowers blood sugar levels, and suppress the production of glucagon, the hormone that raises blood sugar levels. This is important for people with type 2 diabetes whose bodies are insulin resistant and produce very little insulin of their own.
Whoa, let's stop there. The pancreas releases insulin, and people that have insulin resistance, the pancreas isn't making enough. Well, that is not strictly true. The pancreas is still making insulin. It's the body's become insulin resistant. It is one of the reasons we actually say that if somebody's a type 2 diabetic that takes insulin as the medication, it is normally completely the wrong medication because you are adding fuel to the fire. So yeah, another thing I would say in this video that is completely misleading.
Synthetic insulin is a critical treatment for blood sugar management. And semaglutide makes the insulin you do have, whether it's produced naturally or synthetically, work better in your body. Losing excess fat can also help you become more insulin sensitive. That's where GLP-1's next receptor comes in. In the stomach, GLP-1 receptors slow gastric emptying, which means food doesn't move through the digestive system as quickly and you stay fuller for longer.
Drugs have side effects. There are things in nature that we can eat, that we consume, that will slow gastric emptying, but naturally. I bang on about it in my book that the big food industry have been stripping out fiber from our food for a very long time now, because fiber slows down gastric emptying, which means you don't get that hit, that hedonic hit, that delight, that craving for their foods. They've taken the fiber out. If we put the fiber back by having fiber at the beginning of the meal, it is not a drug, but it will do exactly the same as Ozempic. It will slow down gastric emptying, not to the same extent, because we don't want fiber burping, we don't want damaged esophaguses, we don't want paralysis of the intestines, but it does it naturally. You don't need a drug, is my main point, to slow down gastric emptying.
It slows the digestion of your food, which overall helps with blood sugar spikes, and it helps you feel fuller for longer. So
Fuller for longer. Take fiber.
And maybe most importantly, at least in regard to weight loss, there are GLP-1 receptors in the brain, particularly in the hypothalamus, that suppress hunger cravings.
satiety, feeling for longer is really helpful.
The digestive system is designed to do all of this naturally, but GLP-1 based medications are made to amplify the hormone's numerous health effects. And it works.
It's so right. The body is designed to do this naturally. But should we amplify any hormone if the body's working? It's not so much that the body has stopped working with GLP-1s, it's that we're eating a diet that isn't a human diet. We're stripping out the fiber that would actually slow gastric emptying anyway. Does it make any sense to keep adding more and more drugs to solve issues around the food that we're digesting?
It works. A major clinical trial of semaglutide in adults showed an average weight reduction of around 15% when paired with an adjusted diet and exercise routine, compared to a placebo group which demonstrated a little over 2% weight reduction. That level of effectiveness rivals the results of metabolic bariatric surgery.
And the fact that I was able to take a once weekly injection and then all of a sudden, the pounds just dropped off. I was like, this is wild to me.
These drugs aren't without side effects, the most common being nausea and gastrointestinal effects like diarrhea. Mila initially stopped taking Ozempic because of a side effect that gave her heart palpitations. But she's back on it now, and so far, so good.
My blood sugars are great.
Just because the body can eventually tolerate something, does that make it safe to take? I mean, if you've ever smoked, that first cigarette was horrible. But people get over that and carry on smoking. Does that mean smoking's good for you? Alcohol's the same. That first drink, vile. But eventually you get accustomed to it and you carry on drinking. Does that mean that alcohol's good for you? Just because you can eventually tolerate the side effects of Ozempic, does that mean it's in line with the body and it is good for you? Look, I totally get that we like hacks, and I love health hacks, and I totally get that too much weight and obesity can drive lots of chronic illness, and it can. And yes, Ozempic can be a solution, but it's not the best solution for everybody. Some people, maybe to start that weight loss, maybe it might be right for a few people. I've even got one friend, a colleague of mine, that is on Ozempic, but has now stopped. It kick-started the action, but while he was doing that, I was teaching him about the food that would do the same thing, putting his fiber up. He came off it, his weight loss has continued. Just because your body can tolerate a drug doesn't mean that it's right for you.
I'm having an easier time losing weight, and I've amped up my exercise and being outdoors and hiking and running and walking, and you still have to do all of the other things that everyone has to do to be able to lose weight. It just makes it a little bit easier, but it's helping me so much with my diabetes management.
The number of prescriptions of semaglutide has risen dramatically since becoming available in late 2017. And in 2021, the FDA approved semaglutide to be prescribed at a higher dose for weight management specifically.
At a higher dose? At a higher dose. Yes, look, the body creates GLP-1s, which is what this is mimicking, but at a higher dose. It's like saying, up the amount of donuts you're eating and just up your Ozempic. Up the ultra-processed foods that we know create and are linked to over 30 chronic illnesses. Because it's not just about weight loss. If it was just about weight loss and Ozempic was doing it, and even if it didn't have all these nasty side effects, let's say there was no side effects, it might be curing the weight loss, but by eating the crap foods, the ultra-processed foods, we're masking the situation. Does that make sense? What I'm saying is, even if there were no side effects, which there are, and you lost the weight, you're solving one problem. You could carry on eating the donuts and the crap, and I don't know why I'm picking on donuts. Any junk food, ultra-processed food, is linked to over 30 chronic illnesses. All we're doing here, for many people, is just masking the problem, and we'll be just moving the thing that's going to cause the early death. Does that make sense? So right saying I didn't die of obesity if the crap food caused the cancer. You're still dying younger than you need to die. We have to get people to understand the solution. For most people, the vast majority, is not having paralysis of the stomach, is not having the nausea and putting up with the lack of enjoyment in life and the lack of enjoyment of food and suicides. There is another way. It's about understanding and learning about food. And if you want that quick fix, up your fiber naturally.
Branded under the name Wegovy, it was big news and led to this drug getting a lot of attention sort of all at once.
The messaging started to center more around weight loss than it did diabetes, which is unfortunate for people with diabetes and people living with obesity. There are these two groups of people who really need this drug for health purposes, but it's being trivialized and kind of looked at as like, oh, this is an easy weight loss solution.
There are solutions in place now to deal with the sudden high demand for these drugs for people who need them. Mounjaro, another medication developed specifically for type 2 diabetes, is currently being fast-tracked for approval by the FDA to be prescribed for weight loss too. Now that Ozempic's notoriety helped semaglutide go mainstream, it, and drugs like it, will only become more commonly prescribed for weight management.
More commonly prescribed for weight management. This is a disaster in the making. Look, in the UK, you can now get Ozempic on the NHS. Apparently you can have it for 2 years. But what's going to happen after 2 years when you come off this drug? Well, let me tell you right now. By eating less food, you slow your metabolic rate. By slowing your metabolic rate, when you reintroduce your regular diet, you now have a slower metabolism. You will put on more weight than before when you started taking the drug, because you haven't changed your diet. You've used the drug to counteract the diet. You now have a slower metabolism. You will be in a far worse position when you come off this drug. Unless you change your diet, this is a disaster. This is a drug, in one sense, if you're on it, you better stay on it for life if you don't change your diet, because you're slowing your metabolism. And then when you reintroduce the food, even if it's the good foods, you'll have a slow metabolism. The weight will gain rapidly. There's no such thing as The Biggest Loser reunion party, that program in America, because there is no way that unless you understand what food puts up your blood sugar level, puts up your insulin, locks you in fat storing mode, if you don't understand these basic principles, then weight gain will just continue and will skyrocket the day you come off the drug.
Not as simple as take this injection and you won't be living with obesity anymore, or you will reverse your diabetes. But as a community, we get really excited to see innovations happen and tools that can make our lives a little easier and that can cause less diabetes burnout and helps you think about diabetes less. It's one of those things that I think all of us want to protect at all costs.
I'm all for reversing diabetes. It's been my mission for the last 4 or 5 years to help as many people, mainly in the UK, but around the world, reverse type 2 diabetes. It's absolutely critical. My dad suffers from it. It's why I started Health Results as a company. We do want to reverse diabetes. But relying on this drug, an injection, that will cause, for many people, paralysis of the intestines, that will cause for many people depression, that will put them off food and will not educate in any way, shape or form. For the vast majority of people, it is not the answer. The answer is to learn about food. That's what we're here for at this channel. Please like and subscribe to Health Results, because that's what it's about. We want to educate people that yes, diabetes is a lifestyle, certainly type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease, and the best way to reverse it, put it in remission, to even come off all drugs, which has to be deprescribed. Most of my doctor friends, you ask them what their goal is in life now, it is to start deprescribing drugs, not to add more and more drugs, masking issues, and letting people carry on eating foods that aren't aligned to the human diet. No, they want to deprescribe drugs. And one of the ways to do it, and the only way really to do it, is to help people learn about what food is causing the problems in the first place. And that's how we reverse and put in remission type 2 diabetes. If you like this video, don't just take my word for it. Click up here and listen to Dr. Ben Bickman, an expert in GLP-1s, in Ozempic, and be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, because there's going to be a lot more videos like this coming up shortly.